The topic of how fans critique players not checking in corners, particularly at the pro level, but in matchmaking as well in CSGO, is something actually, when I think back, it's something I should have included in my video that I'll link like up here. The one that was about ways that fans critique pro players and some of the flaws that I saw in how they do that. And so just as when I was talking about other things like techniques of firing the AWP, etc., players will make this kind of naive conclusion that a player who's really good should never miss easy shots, whereas obviously that's not reasonable for anyone. And also in the circumstances, just because you can hit incredible shots doesn't mean you don't miss easy shots. It's not linear like that. In the same sense, I often see the way people characterize a scenario in a pro game, or matchmaking as well, but it's better in the pro scene because these are elite level players. So as a result, it's not often a mistake of the person who's doing it as the fan or a spectator thinks. So what will happen is players will be going into a site. So a great example, okay, will be bomb site B on Inferno, and we're talking about the players that are terrorists here. They're coming into the site, and let's say there's a CT hiding as you're coming in as the terrorist up the banana. He's on the right over here. You're going to come in and he's in the classic spot behind the sandbags where if he peeks out, you'll see him. But if he hides long enough or there's a smoke down, he can hide there for quite a while. And if you don't check it, maybe he can kill you from behind. And we've all seen a million clips of a pro player killing a bunch of people as they come by or getting behind them and killing them all. When someone doesn't check there, lots of people will be like, oh, what an idiot. Why didn't that guy check there? What is he doing? Doesn't he know the game? I always check that corner. And this is actually a really big problem in terms of how people think about the game. The idea that they think there's this checklist of things you do that all good players do, like the first 80% of, and then the next 20% decides if you're a god tier pro or just an okay pro or just a matchmaking guy. It's not like that at all. First of all, pro players can be all up and down the list themselves, but they've got so much skill or so much experience that they might do certain things better that makes up for the lesser mistakes. Just like a noob could actually have very good qualities otherwise, but be failing all the fundamentals. But here's the key thing. You shouldn't check every corner in matchmaking or pro games. Each player should not check every corner. Let's understand that concept for a start off. Now, first of all, the reason why you shouldn't check every corner on terrorist side is because in a number of strats, in fact, I'd say nearly the vast majority of strats, it's not feasible to check every single corner that someone could be hiding in, that a CT could be hiding in for a strategy. Unless you're just playing free-for-all and you want on your own, it's up to you what you do at that point in time. But in strategies, pro-level strategies, a lot of them are based on timing execution, and there's not many that allow you to walk once you've executed the strat. Usually that's the base of the strat. You're walking up together, checking corners, then you're going to execute. Once it comes to executing the strat, running into the site, you're working on very specific timings so that as I'm going into this point, someone else is going in over here. So sometimes to make those strats work, you have to have checked one corner early, just assume that they're not in the other one. If they haven't shown whatsoever, if they've done a really good job of that, haven't flashed, haven't smoked, haven't moved at all, you have to, in that scenario, sometimes, not all the times obviously, sometimes just assume he's not there and go in to make the rest of the strat work. If you check here, even if you then kill him and go in, it might not work in that particular sense. Now, yes, obviously he kills you, it's going to not work anyway, maybe, because your part of the strat's fucked. But on the 75% time he's not there, you don't check it, and you go in, and it makes the strat work, and it doesn't work. Whereas in the scenarios where he's not there when you check, and now you fucked up the strat, now the strat might not work anyway. So even checking wouldn't have helped necessarily. So the odds in that particular scenario are a good gamble. If checking 100% of the time makes it so the strat only works 50% of the time. Meanwhile, not checking at all means it's a 75% chance of the strat working because of the timing of how fast you can get in there. You can already see 75% is a better chance than 50%. Therefore, in that scenario, a certain spot you might not check. Not that exact spot there. That's an extreme example, but certain spots on maps. Like there's so many hiding spaces. Likewise, some attacks that are very fast rushes, once called, means sometimes you can't check almost any area. Now, there's a way to counteract this. What pro teams do to allow themselves both to be able to execute with proper timing, secondly, to be able to execute fast, and third, to be able to still check the majority of corners, is they assign a general order on how people will check. So the first guy in, so for example in the sandbags case, sometimes isn't the guy looking at the sandbags, he might actually be the guy looking at the other corner inside the site where they hide and usually they smoke off. He's looking there. The guy right next to him might be the one who checks the sandbags. Or the first guy might check the sandbags and go over to the left a bit, and then the next guy might be looking in there. You have a hierarchy as to who's looking where. So the idea is the main 80% spots that we have to check, we're going to get checked sort of one by one. One person might check 2 or 3 depending if they're further back. But in general, it's not going to be each person checking every spot. That's totally inefficient and won't work for pro level CS. Likewise, after you've done the order like that, then you're going to get scenarios where people die just because the order got messed up. As in, the first guy got flashed when he was going to check, and so the other guy wasn't fully flashed and he runs past him and gets killed. Or the first guy gets killed when he hadn't fully had a chance to check, and then he doesn't check another one that he checks in the site. These are just unfortunate scenarios, or scenarios that need a little bit of tweaking. It's not as simple as an obvious mistake that this guy didn't check there. Likewise, sometimes you have to just gamble. For example, certain spots, we all know, there's multiple angles that someone can be hiding behind where they can shoot you as you check one of those spots. So it's not the case that you just look at say the guy gets killed, you go, you should have checked that spot. Well, you know that now after the fact. You have 20/20 hindsight vision now. In the moment, maybe he knew based on what had happened elsewhere in the game, the opponent hadn't hidden in that spot, or they'd been constantly overloading this spot, or they sometimes hide there and don't make a sound. He's got other information which you haven't taken into account, especially if you haven't watched his POV before on that particular round, where he had maybe good reason to check this particular spot over what might be the more obvious spot because the opponent hadn't been there. It just this one time he happened to be wrong. Although actually with his information, he might have been making correct decisions, which overall, over like 50 games he plays, will be better more often than if he checked the original spot. You have to take this into consideration, because if you don't, and this is just a very simple point, very simple video, you're going to be, again, in the scenario, which is not a good place to be if you want to learn about the game, of thinking that like pros are idiots and they don't know what they're doing in this sense, and I know about that, and I do that in my matchmaking. It's like, yeah, but are you playing strats? Do you know how the strats execute? Do you know what his role was in the hierarchy of the strat, whose job it was to check there? Might not have been his job. It looks easy because you're seeing the opponent get to mow him down, like, well, it's easy, I could sit there and do that. It's kind of a naive and ignorant way to view the game, though. I think it's important to always try and stop and consider all the factors before you make these crazy judgments that this guy's a moron and he doesn't know what he's doing. So thanks to OfferDraft. They sponsor this podcast, they sponsor my whole channel, and they offer fantasy games such as League of Legends, such as Counter-Strike Global Offensive. You could play the major that previously there. I've seen them have tournaments like DreamHack Summer Up. You pick a team, you have a salary overall, you pick a team, you enter the contest for whatever amount of money you want to enter for, and that changes how much you can win. Up to tens of thousands of dollars can be won in week. People have done that. They give away hundreds of thousands every week or two, or I think it's like millions at this point overall for the months. So go to offerdraft.com. There's a link in the description box below if you'd like to do so. Thanks.